Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jimmy and I keep posting about running videos on this channel. So I've been running for around 8 years now, and in the last 8 years I've had my share of injuries. The last one being just last Saturday. So in this video, as I promised last week, I'm going to talk about the different running injuries I've had and how I've dealt with it over the years. In the first half of the video, I'll talk to you about the 3 different injuries I've had, and in the second half I'll talk about my ongoing preparation for the Amsterdam Marathon 2023. But before we move on to the content, let me make it very clear that this video is not meant to be a medical advice. I'm not a professional, and if you are injured, please consult a physio or a healthcare professional. This video here is simply my experience of injuries and how I've dealt with it over the years, and how I approach my running every day to be able to avoid some of those injuries. So the first injury that I'm going to talk about is shin splints. Shin splints are quite a painful experience. It's the pain you feel on the tibia, on the shin, if you are a heel striker or if you are an overpronator. So I used to be that before, and back in 2014 when I started running, I used to run on a strike on my heels basically, and it caused a lot of pain as I increased the mileage, and I didn't know that initially. I thought that it's a normal thing that you feel a pain on the shin because of the impact on the ground every time you run. But after it got a little worse, I had to take some days off running, and then I consulted a professional who then guided me that you're not supposed to strike the heel on the ground so hard. You're supposed to run on your midfoot or your forefoot, and your foot should land below your body. So that was my first injury, so as to say, and that was the first time I sort of corrected my running form. It took me some time to change and become a forefoot striker or a midfoot striker. I still sort of scrape the heel a little bit sometimes, as I can see from some of my shoes. The heel has worn off, but I have improved tremendously and I no longer get the shin splint. When I got it, my doctor suggested taking complete rest, and that's what I did for a few weeks, and it was better after a while. And once I began running on my forefoot, I started by running on my tiptoes initially, but then eventually with practice I learned how to run on my midfoot, or at least strike the heel below my strike the foot below my body, so that the impact does not hit the shin so badly. So eventually, I think after all these years, after the last 7 or 8 years of running, I haven't had that problem again. So that was my first injury. Alright, the second injury which I had was my calf muscle tear, or calf muscle pull, or calf muscle strain. There are different terminologies on the internet. But the first time I had this was in 2021 when I started increasing my volume. So this happens usually if you increase your volume really fast, or sometimes just because probably you haven't warmed up enough, or there are problems in your calf which have not been dealt with. Particularly, you haven't recovered enough from your previous hard runs. So this probably happened to me because of a combination of different factors, and also because of bad shoes. Again, that's one thing I think I had this time. So I've had this injury twice, once in 2021, and 2021 it was because I think I was increasing my volumes really hard, really fast back then, and caused my left calf to give in. So I consulted a professional, and they gave me about a week's rest, and I was back to running after a week. I had this problem again just about a week ago, and basically this time I was increasing the volume, but I was feeling good because I was not feeling so tired, and the volume increase wasn't so drastic either, around 2 kilometers to 4 kilometers every week on a base of around 50 to 60 kilometers. I've moved on to around 65, 66 kilometers. Shouldn't have happened ideally, but I guess it has been building up for some time, and you can't sometimes predict how the muscles recover. And probably also because I was using a pair of shoes which I probably should have retired by now, so it's kind of, the cushion has kind of disintegrated, and it doesn't look so bad. But if later on when I checked the cushion, it wasn't so soft anymore, or it wasn't so accommodating anymore. The energy return wasn't there anymore. So I compared a same version of both the shoes on different kilometers, and I saw that the older one, or the one which had more miles, has the sole kind of gives in very easily, as compared to a one which has less than 350 kilometers to it. The cushion holds much more, the sole holds much more strongly. So I think that was one of the problems there, which is why you need to retire your shoes early. You need to be very careful about the shoes you wear for your hard runs, particularly the long runs and the hard runs. And as you grow in volumes, you need to kind of rotate your shoes very well. So maybe that's why it happened, but it's just a speculation. So I have this injury again. So how do you deal with this? So if you have a calf muscle tear, you can't do anything about it except for just resting. They call it RICE, right? It's called, but you need rest. You need to ice it. C is for compression. Yeah, you need to have a pair of compression swords or keep it tight. And E stands for elevation. I was right. RICE, RICE. So I did those things for a few days, and I felt better. I went for a run walk thing later on, and it turned out fine. Although the last week my coach advised me not to go on runs anymore for about 3-4 days, and choose to do cycling or elliptical or other forms of cross training exercises, which I did, and I feel okay now. Yesterday I went for my long run, which I'm going to talk to you about in my marathon training update. So that is the second injury which I experienced, and this is how I dealt with it. RICE: rest, icing, compression, and elevation. Keep it elevated. Keep the leg elevated. So the third injury which I experienced was not particularly because of running, but I mean it's still a muscle which we use often, the hamstrings. So I had a hamstring injury due to a non-running sports activity I participated in at some point in time. But I also was running quite heavily on those days. So, and in the afternoons I was playing some other sports like tennis or table tennis or something which involves sharp, fast movements, and I injured my hamstring. It didn't feel very serious initially, but later on, since I ignored it, it grew really bad, and it's probably the worst injury I've had so far. It knocked me out and stopped me from running for at least around 5 months. October, November, December, January, February, March. Yeah, that's a lot of months. In fact, that was in 2019. So by March, lockdown started, and I wasn't able to go out running anymore. And on most days, we were locked inside our houses. But I mean, that was a boon anyway, because in a way, blessing in disguise anyway, because it allowed me to rest and recover. But that was the worst thing I could do. I pushed myself despite the injury, and I paid the price for it. I was unable to go out running for quite a long duration. So the hamstring injury happens if your muscles are not warmed up enough and you do sudden fast movements which involve your hamstring. So you need to be careful about it, because if the hamstring injury becomes serious, then you are looking at a very long duration of recovery. If it's not, then probably a week or two could be enough for recovery, although it depends upon your situation. But if it's a serious injury, very serious injury, then probably, I think I've read that you could even have to go for a surgery or something. But anyway, so that was my third injury which I experienced, and thankfully those are the only serious injuries I've had so far. They are minor ones, but they are not really worth mentioning, because didn't really take much time to recover, or didn't really stop me from running anyway. So those are the three injuries I wanted to talk about. So I think in conclusion, running injuries are plenty of them. You can get injured because of overuse, you can get injured because of bad shoes. There are multiple reasons, because Running is a very monotonous kind of an activity where you're undergoing the same set of motions step by step, step by step, step by step. And if there is a sort of an injury somewhere, it just builds over time if you ignore it. So if you feel any kind of a pain during running and it keeps repeating every step during the run, you need to stop and get it looked at. If you have some sort of pain you felt in one run and then in the run consecutive runs you have that pain again, you need to get it looked at. And lastly, if you have a pain, if you feel a pain and then that pain continues even after the run, you feel it while you're sleeping, while lying down, while working in the office, you need to get it looked at, because it could be something which grows worse if you ignore. So I mean, that's one of the things I keep in mind, because I don't want to get knocked out and stay off running for long. Then another thing is the shoes. You need to build a proper shoe rotation habit. You need to have shoes which suit your feet. A lot of times I end up wearing shoes which don't fit me properly, sometimes because of various reasons. I don't want to throw them away because I bought them, or because I just like them a lot because of the way they look, things like that. I mean, petty things, but sometimes you need to really grow out of that and try to build a proper shoe rotation of shoes that fit you very well. If they don't really fit you, I think you might be inviting some trouble for yourself. It has happened to me a few times. So get proper shoes and get a proper shoe rotation. Then lastly, for you to avoid these kind of things, these kind of injuries, you need to have a proper warm up and cool down routine. You need to schedule your massage and foam rolling and stretching sessions, because I think if you ignore those things, I'll give you an example. If you don't stretch or foam roll properly, your muscles might shorten. For example, for me, my glutes and hips, they tighten up a lot especially after a lot of miles. If I run a lot of miles, if I don't cool down properly, if I don't stretch, if I don't foam roll, my muscles start tightening up. And when that happens, it affects my running form. I think I start limping a little bit, or it's not noticeable, but I feel a little bit of pain sometimes when I'm running because of not having a stretching or foam rolling session. So you need to do those things, bring that into your routine to be able to maintain good running form. So those things are my thumb rule in order to avoid injuries. And even after that, you still get injured, like I did in the last long run when I went. I mean, you can't avoid it. That's the human body. But like I said before, you need to listen to your body, get yourself some rest, recover, and get back to training. So that brings me to the end of the first half of the video, and there's not much to say in the second half actually, because I spent most of last week resting. I did around 20 to 30 minutes of elliptical in the house itself. I didn't even go to the gym. I did some weights for the upper body and core workout, push-ups, things like that. So I had a very easy week relatively, although I didn't enjoy it much because I wanted to go out there and carry on with the training for the marathon. But I can't preach about things on the video and not really execute it for myself. So I took rest last week. I started off tested myself rather. So this is one more thing I forgot to mention. If you are injured, before getting back to full-fledged training, try to test yourself first. Go out there and do a little bit of a run walk thing, so that you can be sure that you're not feeling that pain anymore. So what I did last Tuesday before I went on a break again was I went for a slow run walk thing. I ran for a few 100 meters and then I walked again, and so I didn't feel any pain for the first 2-3 kilometers, but after the 4th kilometer it felt a little stiff, so I stopped running that day and I came back and updated my coach about it, and we decided to just go on the elliptical way and do elliptical and cycling if possible. So I just ended up doing elliptical in the last whole week. So Saturday again I was feeling quite good, so I went out for the run walk thing. Initially, I thought that I'll do maybe around 10 kilometers or so, 10 to 12 kilometers, but I felt really good. So I went the whole stretch of 16 kilometers, although again at a very easy pace of 6.5 minutes per kilometer, which is because I walked a lot of distance and ran some of it at 5:30 minutes per kilometer. So that was my last week of a marathon preparation. My Amsterdam Marathon is on October 15th, which is roughly around, let's say 2.5 months away. And I think I have enough time to get back to training. My coach has recommended that we'll start building back slowly, because previous week my workout mileage was supposed to be 66 kilometers or so, or 64 kilometers. This week is supposed to be more than that, but I didn't do it. So next week we are going to start building from 55 kilometers again and try to build it up from there and see how it goes. So yep, that brings me to the end of today's update, and I thank you for watching this video. And if you want to follow my progress for this marathon preparation and find out whether I will be able to improve from my 3-hour 27-minute marathon to 3:22 minutes, 3-hour 22 minutes marathon in October, please do subscribe and let me know in the comments below if you have any experience of your own with injuries, and if you dealt with it in a different way, or if you have any advice for me on how to deal with it, or you have any information, any other information you'd like to share. So thank you for watching, and please do like and subscribe, and see you around in the next video. Thank you.